Hello and welcome to the How to Travel Vegan podcast. I'm your host, Tom Simak, and today we're interviewing Brighde. So for today's episode, this is actually the first guest that I'm having on the show. I don't want to stop doing the little 3, 4, 5 minute snippets of the city, guides, but I do want to start introducing some really cool guests to you guys that will help you on your vegan travel journey. And that's why it's really awesome to have Brighde as the first guest. Brighde has a pretty extensive background tour leading and managing, and she's now actually launched a vegan travel company. It is called World Vegan Travel, and they do more your all-inclusive, boutique, nicer, comprehensive tours, which we'll go into a bit more in the episode. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Hello, Brighde. Welcome to the How to Travel Vegan podcast. You are officially my first guest on this show. It is a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, thank you, Tom, and thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Real honor. Awesome, and you're well. Bangkok's nice and warm for you, like we were discussing before. And we've just met, just for the context for the listeners. So to start us off, I know it's a bit hard and I guess it's a really quick question, but in like 2 to 3 minutes, can you give us a sum up of your vegan story and what you're currently doing?
Absolutely. So I became vegan 10 years ago by stumbling across a podcast by Colleen Patrick Goudreau, and the information was really, really profound for me. So, I became vegan pretty quickly, and my partner Seb did 6 months afterwards. And both Seb and I have a background in travel, and about 2 years ago, we decided to collaborate with Colleen Patrick Goudreau, the person that inspired us both to go vegan in the first place and someone who became a good friend. And we decided to work with her to take her travelers on incredible trips around the world. So that's how it all started.
Awesome. And I know, because I've done obviously my little bit of research, you run an amazing vegan travel company, and like we were chatting via email, it's not the first time I've come across it. So I want to talk about that at the end so we can kind of finish it up on a really good note. To start us off, I'm a huge fan of tangible tips because for a lot of people, traveling can be really scary, especially because we need food to survive. And being vegan means that you're doing something amazing ethically for the planet, for your health, for the animals. You don't want to sacrifice a passion, which is travel. So you've been traveling for many, many years. I think you spent a lot of time in France and Thailand from what I understand. Was it scary at first and still now for you to tackle travel 24/7 and work and be vegan at the same time?
Sure. So since we've been vegan, the travel that we have done has not been for very, very extended periods of time. We haven't been sort of on the road for months and months at a time. So I have to say that my attitude when I'm traveling is generally a pretty positive one. Like, I've been vegan long enough to know that I am not going to starve, probably not going to starve or go hungry in any way. I mean, I've been vegan for 10 years and I've been traveling in lots and lots of different places, some very, very rural locations, in places that aren't very vegan friendly, and I've never actually gone hungry. I won't deny that I have had some repetitive meals for a few days, but considering most of the time, like 98% of the time, I eat delicious, incredible food. I'm not going to get too sort of hung up on, the odd couple of meals that aren't that crash hot. So I really feel like that's something like a mindset shift that I've made, in that I just know that I'm never going to actually go hungry. Of course, I want
Mm.
delicious, incredible vegan food, and especially food from the area in which I'm visiting, because that's a part of it. It's an
Yes.
interesting thing to experience. But if I end up with a cheeseless pizza for a tomato pizza for a couple of days in a row, I'm not going to worry too much about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I've kind of found the same, and I've never really had any issues traveling anywhere. I recently actually went to Chongqing in China, and I found that to actually be my hardest time being vegan. And it wasn't because of the food, but it was actually the language barrier. How have you found that you've kind of, because you've traveled, especially France, to more rural regions in Asia as well. How do you overcome things like not travel barriers, language barriers?
Sure. Okay, so this is a tip that I really recommend people do is we actually have a downloadable one of this on our website, but
Oh,
you
awesome.
can make one yourself,
Yeah.
whatever you want. But I create like two things. So first of all, I make sure that I have Google Translate on my phone, and I have some really useful phrases, and I have the language of the destination that I'm visiting in downloaded, so I don't have to have Wi-Fi. So I know that it's always there. And you can star useful phrases in Google Translate that can be helpful. You can also do the same thing by creating a little table in Word
Yes.
or Google Docs or something like that,
Yeah.
and then just print that off and keep that in your wallet. And I think it could be really helpful as well to have a couple of phrases in there that anyone will be able to do. So, for example, if you are in China in an area, I wouldn't ask them to make me a cheeseless pizza, for example. I would
Yes.
probably ask them if they could make some a vegetable fried rice without egg, and some tofu if they had it, something that
Yeah.
without soy sauce, for example. And I think most kitchens would be able to make that, and that way I would know that I would get something. And then of course, I can supplement it by going to the market and getting some fruits that
Yes.
that I can also eat as well. So I guess that would be my main tip in that area.
Brighde, I know for a lot of people, traveling for the first time could be a huge, big stress in their life, especially for people who haven't traveled before. So, where would you start in terms of doing research for a new destination where there could be potentially cultural differences, language barriers? Where's your go to? What do you do?
Sure thing. Well, a bit of a shameless plug here. We actually have on our website like a countdown to vegan travel free guide with a lot of stuff that obviously I couldn't talk about entirely right now because it would probably take a long time. But
Yes.
certainly, certainly people can go and check that out if they would like. However, just in summary, there's quite a few things that you can do. First of all, Happy Cow is an absolutely fantastic app. I think most new, even new vegans know about this because it is just so fantastic. And there are a lot of guides or similar apps or similar websites within the country that you could be visiting. So, for example, in France, there is a website called Veggie Resto, which is basically like
Yes.
Happy Cow, but
We
it
know how to spell that.
specifically
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, it's for France. So, you might get some things on there that are not on Happy Cow, for example. Travel bloggers, they do an amazing job at creating guides for places. So if you were to look up a vegan city guide, Rome, for example, there's going to be, some really great resources there, usually very, very up to date. People are constantly updating them and renewing them. These are fantastic. If you're going to be in a place for more than a few days, and maybe you're going to uh, um, visit all of this sort of obvious vegan restaurants, then I really recommend you reach out to some Facebook groups. For example, in Paris, there is Paris Vegan Group, I think it is, and they'll also help you out, and it can be also a nice way to connect with vegans in the community that you're going to. The rise of the vegan hotel is something kind of interesting. There are more
Yes,
and
I've
more
heard a little bit about
hotels.
this, which is awesome.
Yes, yes. So there are more and more vegan hotels. Now, of course, you don't have to stay in a vegan hotel, and I don't want to raise anyone's hopes, but it is probably unlikely that there will be a vegan hotel in exactly the place that you want to go, but you should check. You never know. So if you go onto veggiehotels.com, they will often have some resources uh, that they will have listings there for you. And looking on Instagram, you can come across some amazing place. Like yesterday, I can't remember the name of it. I came across this it's almost like a vegan village in Tuscany,
Random as.
which
Oh, it's
is,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not completely vegan, but they have, in this small village, they have a couple of vegan restaurants, and they have all of these little apartments as well that are vegan, which I think is pretty cool as well. So
Yes.
I guess those would be my main ones, but just go with a positive mindset, because you will find something. And I also really recommend that people don't go into analysis paralysis, where they're just like
Yes.
just looking for places, trying to map out every single little thing, like checking a bazillion reviews. I mean, maybe people like to do that, but I get over that pretty quickly. Um, so just know that you will probably. I'm sure you will find something to eat, and there'll be delicious things available for you as well.
Absolutely. I always say things like this podcast or Happy Cow or these vegan Facebook groups, they're amazing, but always to use them as a starting point, not the end point. Like there's always going to be some cute shop that does vegan places that haven't even heard of Happy Cow, and these cute, especially in Europe. I know it's very big in like Paris, Spain. I know I just named a city in a country, but whatever. It's all over the place. I think I did want to get into a little bit of how I'm a huge advocate for tours, and I know you do run an amazing tour company that travels a lot of different places. How would someone, and why would someone, in terms of pros and cons, choose independent travel as opposed to a guided tour?
Sure, sure. So I have done both extensively as a traveler, as a tour leader, and independent travel as well. So I think I can speak to the positives and
Yes.
negatives of each one. Independent travel is fantastic, and but it does require some work, and usually in this day and age when we have the internet, it usually requires a lot of planning ahead of time, whether it's figuring out the hotels that you're going to stay, and obviously finding out ones that fit your budget and um, uh, fit your budget and fit your preferences, and of course transportation, and also activities and sightseeing and things that you are going to do. I think that a pro for independent travel is that it can be quite really cheap. You can travel very, very cheaply independently, especially if you have a long time. So instead of taking a very, very fast train from A to B, you might take a bus from A to B. So that and of course, if you're traveling for 2 months, 6 months, a year, then of course you have the flexibility to do that. Um, However, with the group tour, I think group tours can be really helpful if you are very limited on time, and if you don't have a huge amount of time to plan something. And I think I can certainly speak to this, but as I've got older, um, when I want to travel, I just really want everything to be done for me. And I think a lot of people are like that. You know, they work
Yes.
really, really hard. This is their 1 or 2 weeks or 10 days holiday for the whole year. They want to come on holiday and they are prepared to pay the money to just be able to relax.
Yes. Pay for
And
convenience.
tours,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly, and you can just sort of leave your brain at home a little bit, and it's so nice to do that because we always have to be on such high alert the rest of the time. Tours can also be really good for cultural interactions as well, or interacting with local people. Very often, unless you are a particular um, personality, or somebody who's prepared to put yourself out there a little bit, it can be a little bit hard to connect with the people in the destination that you're going to. So for example, whether it's can be sort of trying to sort of maybe make friends or interact with people, it can be really hard unless there is somebody with the language skills or has already organized that ahead of time. So for example, on the tours that we do, we always try to connect our travelers with people from the local area. So in Rwanda, for example, we brought the gorilla doctors in to have dinner with our groups. We brought people that are doing trap neuter release programs with dogs, all of these kinds of things. And sometimes, it can be really nice to have somebody that can sort of bridge the gap, so to speak, between the traveler and the local people. I also think being on a tour as well can be really helpful because you have usually access to excellent guides, professional tour guides who are able to help you in many ways. They can help you gain a really good understanding to the country or the location that you're visiting, because they are experts and they are amazing at that. And they could also really help you make sure that you're not doing anything culturally inappropriate. If they are doing the right thing, they'll let you know, oh, please don't touch that child on the head, or they can give you
Yes,
the
yes,
information
that thing.
ahead of time so that you don't do that. And that kind of information, unless you're doing a lot of reading and research ahead of time, it might be hard to know about that.
All right, so I think this is the second time we're trying this question because my system is freezing on me. So we are low key repeating ourselves, but we're acting like it never happened. So it's okay. We were just talking about carbon emissions and kind of offsetting that, and then diving a bit into more of the eco sustainability ways of tourism. So I think I'd want you to dive a bit more into what carbon offsetting is when we travel, and then how we can travel more sustainably as well.
Okay, sure. Well, it's become increasingly known in the past few months, especially with Greta Thunberg and the work that she has been doing, and the fact that she's pledged to not do any flights because of the impact on on the climate crisis. But uh, carbon offsetting has been a strategy that has been employed by on a voluntary basis by and some people are participating in it, in that they pay some money to some sort of organization or some sort of company that will do work to offset the carbon dioxide that you have produced in your flight that you have taken. So some of the time they will plant trees. Some of the time they might give low electricity use light bulbs to schools or houses in places that do not have them, as a way to sort of offset your flight. And there is certainly some debate about how effective that is, and whether it's just a way for us to feel good about our
Yes,
habits.
that's scary.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and also how whether the trees once planted, for example, are actually allowed to grow into maturity. So you've got to be a little bit careful with these things, and I think these things are going to be improved as time goes on. But I actually read something that was very interesting by the CEO of, I think, Emirates, and they are now starting to admit that they do have a very big part to play in as an airlines to be part of the solution, whether it is starting to develop synthetic fuels.
I think it was Etihad. I think it was Etihad from memory. They released like this synthetic. It was like sustainably fuel or whatever sustainable fuel is, but they had the first flight which went from like Abu Dhabi to Paris or something that was completely carbon offset. It was really interesting to read. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, I missed that one. That's it. Really interesting. Yeah. So of course, that the carbon that is produced is certainly a very big issue. However, there are certainly plenty of things that we can be doing. I mean, I've been in Southeast Asia for quite a long time, and I first came here to tour lead in Southeast Asia in 2002, and water was then and is still now not drinkable. So basically every time I drank water, it was from a plastic bottle. And
Yeah,
I
it's a
shudder
hard
to
one.
think at how much plastic that I created. However, I'm happy to say that things are changing, and there are some really great options for travelers to really reduce this amount of plastic bottle use. The first one is often you can take your water bottle, and when you go into restaurants and places like that, they will often have like a gallon drum of water that obviously is refilled in the back that they use to wash vegetables and things like that. You can often ask them, could you fill my water bottle up with drinkable water? And if they're a little bit hesitant to do that because they're missing out on income from selling a bottle of water, then I think it's a really nice gesture to pay for that. Say, I'm happy to pay some money for you to refill my bottle. So that's one way. There are also a couple of 3 really good ways that you can do that. And I wish I'd known, because I could I could
Your
have
trusty
come out, so
notebook.
I could have showed you, because I know this is being videoed. But basically, water purification tablets are a really good thing to have in case of an emergency. So a tiny tablet you can put into 1 liter of water, and then you can let it wait for half an hour, and then that water will be drinkable. Then there are 2 products that I think are really interesting. One is called a SteriPen, which is like a little wand, and what you do is you put the wand into a liter of water that is not clean, water from the tap, and then you press a button, and then you just stir it for 90 seconds. And this wand has a UV light in there, which cleans all of the nasties that could make you sick. That's one product that's really good.
Awesome.
And then there's another really interesting product called the Lark bottle, LARQ. And that is it's very cute. I have one metal stylish sort of water bottle that you can put in. They're quite small, which isn't ideal, but you can easily fill it. But they have a little button on the top. And when you press the button twice, and agitate the water bottle, it will clean the water in 3 minutes. And this is really good, because then you can just fill it up wherever you are, and then you can just clean it again. So these are really, really great ways to help. I really also recommend that people have tote bags, some little maybe collapsible Tupperwares, some tea towels, some lightweight reusable cutlery, or bamboo cutlery that they can use.
Bamboo cutlery is where it's at.
Yes, yeah. And I actually have, and maybe you can put in the link to on the show notes, I actually have a list of things that people might like to include in their packing as well, to make sure that they have everything they do. So I think there is quite a lot of things that you can do to reduce the amount of waste that you use when traveling.
Awesome. That is heaps of really good practical tips. I didn't know about this water bottle. That's awesome. It's like, I feel like Harry Potter, like just clean water. I don't know what the spell is for that, but that's really, really cool.
It
Um,
is really cool. They're a little bit pricey. You're looking at about 80 or $100 for one of these, either the Lark bottle or the Steri pen, but they last forever. The only thing is that you need to be careful that you don't lose it, because then, of course, that would be
yes,
really upsetting. But
yes.
if you use it and you don't lose it, then it will pay for itself in just 2 or 3 weeks of traveling.
Seriously, because you're not buying those dispensable bottles, which are $1, $2, $3 each. But not only that, it's a not non-negotiable. I'm trying to think of the word, but no brainer, because you're just not wasting that single-use plastic. Which I did a lot of research recently on the Pacific Garbage Patch, and that blew my mind in terms of single-use plastic and how horrific that is for the environment. So, Brighde, you've dropped some amazing practical tips this whole episode, which is really awesome. We thank you for that dearly. Where can we find you? Because I know you have some amazing trips to Botswana, France, Southeast Asia. I don't know what other ones you do, and you have really awesome itineraries. I had a look at a few, mainly the Botswana, because I'm like, animals in Africa. Where can we find you?
Sure thing. So our website is worldvegantravel.com. That is where all of our trips are listed. Our trips are often uh, one-offs. It's not like we're doing regular weekly departures yet.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
certainly, people want to go and check back frequently or get on our mailing list to find out when trips are released, so that you can get first dibs. People who are first in usually get the best rooms, or and of course, that means they are less likely to be disappointed at missing out, because sometimes our trips do sell out quite quickly. So I recommend people sign up for the mailing list, and of course follow us on social media: Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. All of those kinds of things is where you can find who we are and what we do, and who our travelers tend to be, and whether our trips might be a good fit for people.
Yes, amazing. And I will link three things below. I'll link your website, which you mentioned. I'll link your Instagram so people can find you. And also that checklist you were mentioning earlier, I'll get you to send that to me so I can link that down below once the episode releases, so people can find all that and all your amazing trips. Congratulations on the success of vegan travel business, which is well needed in this world. Hopefully more and more departures we'll see on the website, which is awesome. And it was a pleasure having a chat, and thank you so much for coming on and having a chat for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be talking to you, Tom. All the best.
Thanks, Brighde. Bye. Thank you so much for listening and watching today's episode. All the links are going to be in the description to find Brighde and the sheet we're talking about, and I guess all the socials as well: Instagram, TikTok, at How to Travel Vegan, if you have any questions. If you love this episode, a 5-star review goes a long way. And if there's any guests on the show that you'd like to have, vegan or travel related, let me know on Instagram at How to Travel Vegan. Plug again. Don't know why I did it twice, but that is all from me today. Much love. Peace.